Hi, I'm Chris Allen with The Long Way Home, and nestled in the backyard of a home here in Hiram is Kay Rasmussen and his wife. They're full-time potters and make amazing things. Also, the way that he looks at his craft to help him guide his life is amazing. Step in and let's see what Kay has to tell us on your Long Way Home.
Well, the clay that my wife and I use is from Laguna Beach out of California, and they make us a specific blend of clay called HB1. And the reason that we use that is because after it's fired, it's basically like glass. If you ever break the piece, it's shiny black inside, even though it has a matte finish on the outside. I went to Rick's College. I was in engineering. The only art class, which was one of the needed classes, was pottery that semester. And so I took the pottery class and really, really loved the process and watching a little mound of clay become something. This is the process called wedging. It's just to get the clay into a uniform consistency so that when I throw the piece on the potter's wheel, it's much easier to center. And
So you're kneading it like bread there, it looks like.
kind of like bread. One of the funny things over the years, being a weird artist that I am, and I would always see faces.
Yeah.
So I would make little characters.
That's great. Yeah, that's perfect.
So I suppose I'm semi-mental about certain things. But I've realized that when I look out at nature a lot of times, or just about anything, I see images. And that's a possibility. Oh, I can use that. Right. How can I figure to use that into my work? So in the art, they don't explain a lot of details that you need know what to do with your degree when you graduate. And as I started doing research, I found out that only 1 in 500 art graduates ever got a job doing what they studied.
So what kind of lotion do you use?
I use a lot.
I'm sure you do.
You can center the outside, but then to make something, you have to be able to go into the center and establish the foot at the bottom. There's so many metaphors about pottery in the scriptures about how the potter centers and how we are each like a pot in the hand of our Creator. So,
right.
So here's the process of opening it.
And so you're using a sponge.
And I use the sponge to add a little extra moisture.
I see.
And establish the right thickness for the base. And then this is called opening. And depending on whether I want a wide top or a narrow top, then that determines how wide the base is at the bottom. I was working part-time jobs while I was going to college, and we made more selling the pottery than I did the previous 3 months working part-time. So we thought, well, heck, that's an opportunity that maybe we should explore. And so we started doing some art shows and working with galleries. And that's how it's evolved. The first step after opening it is called the pulling process. This is probably the hardest part for everybody to learn, is how much pressure to apply as you raise the piece.
That's in the hands of a master, I can tell. Talk to us about what you've learned in your craft and how that's translated into helping you to live a better life.
Well, the interesting thing about pottery is that the clay is very flexible at the beginning, which is kind of like our lives. And The challenge is not to flex it too much or stretch it too far, just like we do in our lives. If we go too far with something, then the majority of the time it collapses. And you have to start over into another process. As the piece is completed that I'm working on, then you let it dry, and it becomes completely formed and rigid. Kind of like our lives. As we mature, we become very rigid in our activities and in the things that we do. Like when the piece is fired the first time, it becomes very hard, but it's still porous, so it can absorb the moisture from that the glazes are mixed with. I'll show you inside.
And you've named it Draco, it looks like.
Yep. This is what's called a downdraft, and so I have a deflector wall that pushes the flame up, and the heat rises, but the exit point is at the bottom, and so it's very conservative as far as how much fuel it uses, because it all gets used as it burns through. The interior of the kiln, when we do the glaze firing, is above 2,300 degrees. A glaze firing takes anywhere between 8 to 10 hours, depending on how loaded it is and the process that I'm going through. So when the piece of pottery is fired the second time, the glazes melt and they fuse to the piece of clay, and that's our finished product. And it doesn't always work out perfectly. Sometimes there's little flaws in the glaze or in the process that we all go through in our lives. But the piece is completed and ready to move on to being a functional or a decorative piece of art. And that's kind of the way our lives are, I think. We're basically all elements. At some point, we'll all go back to the earth and just become dust. And it's fascinating to use dust that the earth has created and be able to make something that has the potential to last, for centuries.
What a great opportunity to spend the afternoon with Kay Rasmussen. What some great words of wisdom, that when things are flexible, you can change them. And then also the great learning that can come from challenges in your life. Get out, meet new people, find new tasks, find new skills on your long way home.